Chain of custody definition would be a chronological documentation that maintains the record of the handling of evidence in a criminal case. Confused? Think of a crime scene. All the evidence found at the crime scene is collected by the police officers. Then the evidence is transferred for examination and analysis by forensic experts. Based on their reporting, the evidence is used in a trial. All the collection, examination, analysis, and storage need movement of the evidence. All these details are filled in the chain of custody form. It is crucial to maintain proper documentation of all this activity to ensure that at no point evidence was compromised. This chain of custody provides a correct record of handling of evidence throughout the investigation. Evidence can include anything from blood, DNA samples, clothing, digital data, and such. This is why it is essential to maintain a proper record of the chain of custody to ensure that at no time was the evidence handled improperly.
To show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Like you, be strong to hold the powers of the sun.
Listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. And in an effort to continue to report on the information that was released to us in the new docs, I'm going to bring you a video that is going to serve a couple of purposes. Number one, it's going to answer questions that we've all had on our mind for a very long time. It's going to, number two, create some new questions we never had on our mind. And it's also going to, number three, point out ludicrousy in the investigation. And the final purpose it will serve is for new counsel being able to remove one of the only pieces of evidence that they even had against Brian Kohberger. And I'm curious why there was never a motion to suppress filed for this evidence. And we'll talk about that here shortly. But in this video, I'm going to inform you. I'm going to apprise you. I'm going to show you a saga that happened in this case. And it's one of the most important pieces of the case since the very beginning that led to everything in this case, apparently. And that saga is called the 1112 King Road camera. And this saga is an unbelievable saga of stupidity, recklessness, carelessness, and with all the things that we've learned here recently, downright dastardly. Hold on to your hats. You're not going to believe this one, but this one is going to be fruitful. First, just to remind everyone what we're talking about, this right here is the 1112 King Road residence. And you can see it's located right here next door to the 1122 King Road house where the atrocity took place. And it's facing away from that house. And on their porch right here is a light bulb that had a light bulb camera in it that has caused a lot of issues in this case, I assure you. And just so you can remember the way everything's situated, here's the King Road residence. Here's the Queen Road apartments. Here's the road in which we know that the undercover officers now took around this place. And at 4:04, a white vehicle pulls in, comes down to right here, and then makes a 3-point turn, turns around, comes back to right here, makes another 3-point turn, turns around, drives around the Queen Road apartments. They say it parks back here at about 4:08, and then at 4:20, it speeds out of there at a high rate of speed. And it's captured on this camera, we know, leaving. However, we don't know if it was captured coming in or not because the leaked video footage that we received doesn't show the 404 vehicle coming back into the screen. And after reading these docs, I don't know that they ever had that, because that doc says that they were thinking the 356 vehicle came in and it was the vehicle that sped out of there at 420, which answers some questions for me. But just so you know, King Road residents, here's 1112 King Road. The camera on the porch is facing this way to 1119 King Road that you see in this picture up here. And it captures mainly this area right here of Queen and King Roads. It sees the vehicles coming in and going out. And there's a dumpster right here, which is interesting for later. So everybody knows what we're talking about with this camera footage. We will now move forward to the saga. Okay, we're going to start this on this doc. I know people have been asking me to tell you the number of the docs. This is number, you know what? I don't know, because when I go through these, I change the name of the header on them to one that I can remember and categorize, so I don't know. But this is the one that I've got for number 1 of this. And this is the Saga, the 1112 camera. Oh, and by the way, another dumpster guy. We'll get into that. Now, it's important to know that this report was written on November 19, 2022 by Lawrence Mowry, detective. And its narrative is for the 1112 King video. You can see it's dated on November 19th. And he's going to, in reverse, describe this saga. And it says on November 13th, 2022, after the atrocity on King Road, he was informed of a possible surveillance camera located at 1112 King Road. And Corporal Ryan Snyder, I guess is the one that informed him, had spoken with one of the residents at this location, PC, who had a camera using the Home Eye Pro app on the porch of their dwelling. Corporal Snyder provided me with the username and password for the Home Eye Pro account associated with that account. I asked Corporal Snyder if this video was stored on a cloud-based system for me to view, or if the resident could download a copy of the video. I was provided a 32 gigabyte SD card from the camera, but the file format was not recognized by any of my forensic computers and prompted me to format the disk. Corporal Snyder informed me that the resident could screen capture the video from her phone, and the card was returned to the resident to enable her to assist in the acquisition of the data. So let's start this off. So Snyder goes to the resident next door, gets the SD card out of the camera at 1112, gives it to Mowry. He goes to his office. He can't open it. So he gives it back to Snyder, tells her to give it back to the resident and see if she can open it and show him the pictures. This was all on November 13th, 2022. Now it goes on to say on November 17th, 2022, I requested the assistance of Officer John Rosinski to recontact the resident and see if she could provide the video from the camera. So this is 4 days later. They still haven't looked at the video on this camera. They gave that card back to the resident, and now they're calling her 4 days later because they're so interested in what happened and they got the video next door. They're now calling her to see if she can pull it up and look at it and show it to them. And that was an issue because Officer Rosinski contacted the resident, who stated she's in Boise. And until November 28th, she was going to remain in Boise. So now the resident that has access to the video footage of 1112 4 days later turns out she's in Boise, Idaho, and they can't look at that video footage. This is serious, y'all. Officer Rosinski, it just says Officer Rosinski and the resident. The resident sent Officer Rosinski a video of a male subject walking by the camera at approximately 3:20 hours towards the dumpster on and it just says on. And then it says Officer Rosinski contacted me, and I spoke to the resident and requested permission to remove the camera from the residence, and she consented. So far we've got, they get the residence. I mean, Snyder gets the camera. Or actually, Snyder gets the SD card, gives it to Mallory. He can't do anything with it. He gives it back to Snyder, tells him to give it back to the residence. 4 days later, they contact her saying, can you see what's on that video? And she says, yeah, we see a guy walking to the dumpster in front of the house at 3:20. Now, you might think this is dumpster guy on Linda Lane, and you would be correct, but that was at 3:15. So apparently Linda Lane dumpster guy continued on to 1112's dumpster, did the same thing. So now we know where dumpster guy went after he left the dumpster at Linda Lane. And now the lady says, okay, I consent to you removing the camera from the residence with the actual, I guess with the camera, the SD card with the camera all together. They got it all back on November 17th. Now, based on Mallory's training and experience, he knows of many different video surveillance cameras, and they used a first in, first out storage retention system. This means the newer data overwrites the older data. I was concerned data may be lost the longer the camera continued to record footage. I requested assistance from Officer Aaron Morris to go to the residence and unscrew the camera from its location. The camera screws into the common light bulb base commonly found on the patio porch fixtures. Officer Morris returned a short time later with the camera and the SD card. So let's back up just a minute. What else have we learned here? Not only did they give the SD card back to the resident on November 13th, they put it back in the light bulb, and it continued to record from November 13th all the way to November 17th at this time. And then Mallory has a revelation. He says, oh no, all the footage on that camera is being recorded over. It overwrites it the longer it sits in it. So I better get out there and get that camera back. So now 4 days later on November 17th, now they've got in their possession the camera and the actual SD card. And then on November 18th, 2022, he again attempted to view the contents of the SD card. He plugged the SD card into a write blocker, and it still was not recognized by the computer. He used FTK Imager version 4712 to make an image of the SD card. Now that the data was on a drive recognized by the operating system, he then used Axiom Magnet version to parse data from the card. In reviewing the data, he found over 13,000 individual images from the card. They appeared to be individual video frames from the camera. So basically, on November 18th, Mallory has got a bunch of screenshots. And that's all he's got is a bunch of screenshots. In fact, he's got, how many? 13,000 of them. So what did he do? Oh, wait, what did he do? What did he do? Okay, so while attempting to view the data on the card, he received a forwarded email from CN, whose sister, MK, resides at the residence. Okay, so the email stated that he was viewing the video remotely when Officer Morris removed the camera. So that means on November 18th, this resident's brother was logged into the camera footage before it was removed, and he was watching it, and he had full access to it, and he's viewing what he saw was a suspicious vehicle in the area, and he was concerned that the video footage stored on the device was being overwritten. So it was probably him that let Mallory know, hey, that camera's being deleted as we speak. But now we know that Snyder gets the video, gives it to Mallory. He gives it back to Snyder. He gives it back to the resident. They put it back in their camera. It keeps on recording. the person's brother, who we don't even know who he is, logs into that person's account, has full access to the video footage, emails Mowry, says, hey, I seen a vehicle, looks suspicious on there. And that prompts Mowry to send a investigator detective back out to collect the video. Chain of custody, folks. Okay. I was then put in touch with TL, another resident. Okay, so this is somebody totally different. Not the brother, not the resident, but another resident at 1112 King Road. They stated she would be back in Moscow at approximately 2,000 hours. So they were coming back before the other ones that were in Boise till the 28th. They met with them at their residence and asked again if she would be willing to assist in recording screen captures on her phone from the device. So that means that they still had full access to the device. They could log into it from their phone. Mowry at this point has no access to any of this. I explained to her that I would replace the camera, gather the information, and then take the camera as evidence. So they still haven't even taken that thing as evidence at this point. I also explained that I needed to take the wireless router since the camera was already linked to the Wi-Fi network. She stated she would consent and allow both items to be seized. So that means that all the way to November 18th, they never had access to this data card, the camera, but other people did because they gave it back to them and they had remote access. And we now know that at least 3 different individuals not only had access, but they logged in and they did things with this video possibly. I reinstalled the camera in the light socket and it powered on. I was able to watch as, now they reinstalled it back into the light socket of the 1112 King Road house. They were able to watch it as the resident, not the first resident, but the second resident, accessed the footage on the camera. They did it on their phone. During this time, the camera showed a vehicle entering the area at approximately 3:56. Now, this was the undercover cop car we now know, and leaving at a high rate of speed at approximately 420. Now, this was the unknown vehicle that left, but where's the 404 pass? I provided the video. They provided the videos to me, so they did it on their phone, gave them to Mowry. He uninstalled the camera, seized the wireless router, and both items were then taken back to the Moscow Police Department as evidence. So they finally collect the evidence on November 18th after everybody's got a hold of it. On November 19th, 2022, while reviewing the videos located at 356 and 420, it appeared the vehicle left the area and may have traveled on Walenta. However, the video stopped. It appeared the vehicle left the area and may have traveled on Walenta. However, the video stopped. In an attempt to see further and gain perhaps a better resolution, I reconstructed the wireless network the camera operated on by powering on the wireless router. I reconstructed it by powering it on. I downloaded the HomeEye Pro app on my work phone. So he did it on his work phone, downloaded an app, and he was able to use the app and download the video clips. These clips included audio, which were not a part of the screenshots completed and were able to capture a longer duration. In the clips, the vehicle's exhaust and acceleration can be heard, as well as seeing the vehicle leave at a high rate of speed on Walenta Drive. After capturing the clips, I disconnected the camera and Wi-Fi router and placed them into evidence. The videos were placed onto a DVD and placed into evidence. So he's saying that this was done all on November 19th, all right? So you talk about chain of custody. We're going to get into that seriously here in just a minute. But that gives you a little bit of insight of what happened between November 13th and November 18th with the 1112 King Road camera. But it doesn't give you all of the insight because we got to go to another doc to fill in what actually happened between the 13th and the 18th, because there was a lot more to this saga. Okay, so when we go to this report, again, written by Lawrence Mowry, but this time on 11/17/22. And this refers to what happened on November 15th, 2022. So this wasn't in his other report. This is a report that fills in the blank. On November 15th, 2022, I received an email. I mean, these guys aren't, English majors for sure. I received an email from Steve Gonzalez, the father of Kaylee Gonzalez. He stated he had access to some of Kaylee's messages and phone calls. Steve stated he would have his daughter, Olivia, contact me about those files. I was able to speak to Olivia, and she sent me various files, including an image from the Spokesman Review showing a camera on a nearby residence, text messages between Kaylee and Jack DeCour, text messages between Kaylee and her Uber driver, Eric, a recent phone call list, and video from the Grub Truck Twitch TV feed. Well, we all knew that happened, but this is all on November 15th. In the image showing the camera, which means the image of the 1112 King Road residence showing the camera on the porch, it was found that residence was at 1112 King Road. The SD card from the camera was brought to Moscow PD, we know now by Snyder, but was the file system of the card was not recognized, wordsmith, by any of the forensic computers. The card was returned to the owner and reinstalled into the camera. Now, this is on the 15th. They're saying, we couldn't figure it out, couldn't get anything off of it, so we gave it back to the resident and we put it back in the camera. That's what happened to that. But then on November 17th, Officer Rosinski recontacted the owner of the camera. Now we know from the other report, they recontacted the owner of the camera because they received an email from the person's brother that said he was looking at the footage and said, hey, look, I see a car. He contacted the owner of the camera, PC, via phone. C stated she was out of town, but sent a video to Officer Rosinski showing a figure walk to the dumpster and appear to look inside. Now we got a little bit more information on what dumpster guy did at 1112. So dumpster guy went to 1112 and appeared into the dumpster. He looked inside. So let's take a look at what that now tells us about dumpster guy. Okay, so look, here's the Queen Road and King Road neighborhood. Over here is Linda Lane. We know from much investigating that at roughly a little after 3:13, a person appears on the Linda Lane 1320 camera footage, walking up Linda Lane, heading this way, which is south, and they come up to the dumpster on Linda Lane and appear to look in and appear to get something out of that dumpster. Now, we also know that he continued on in a direction towards the King Road residence, and we see him on 1330 Linda Lane walking down the steps here of this parking lot, and then he shadowly comes over and then disappears right in this area. We never knew what happened to him after that. But now we know that 5 minutes later, which appears to be about how long it would take to walk from here to this dumpster, that this dumpster guy must have continued on through the Linda Lane apartments on a practically direct path through the King Road, 1122 King Road parking area, past 1112 King, all the way to the dumpster here right in front of 1112 King, and apparently did the same thing. And this happened at 3:20 a.m. Now, at this point, we don't know which direction he went after this dumpster look in at 3:20. But now at least we know what happened to this guy from here at 3:15 to now he's here at 3:20. So did he go from here to here and then back to here? Well, we'll find out, I guess. But we're not done with the saga yet of the 1112 camera. And this is yet another report. This one is filed by Andrew Fox. Not sure who Andrew Fox is, but you can see this one is dated July 5th of 2023. Now, this would be about 7 months after they arrested Bryan Kohberger. And its narrative is the concatenation of videos. And you can see that Fox writes here on June 15th, 2023. Now, I do think it's important for me to point out that this was almost 1 month after the secret grand jury indictment of Bryan Kohberger. Okay, so Kohberger's already been indicted for a month when this report was written. And it says, I was provided the entirety of the 1112 King Road surveillance footage or surveillance videos. This included 1,464 5-minute videos that range from 12:55 a.m. on 11/13/22 to 17:22. So I believe, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, that would be 5:22 p.m. on 11/17/2022. Using Axon Investigative version 3.1 software, I was able to stitch the videos together to multiple hour clips. As a result, I was able to compile the videos down to 17. So he made 17 of these multiple hour clips. The videos were placed on a portable hard drive and entered into evidence. So before June 15, 2023, the 1112 King Road footage consisted of 1,464 5-minute clips. So that answers a huge question that we've all had for so long. Some of us speculated that the video footage would run for 5 minutes. Some of us 1 minute. Some of us thought it's a 24-hour SD card and it recorded continuously. Now we know the true answer. It records for 5 minutes at a time, which tells us that there's likely to be missing time between each 5-minute clip. However, I think what's important when you think about the litigation of this case, Ann Taylor said that she couldn't get the 1112 camera footage. She had to litigate it very hard to be able to get that in discovery. Probably because they didn't even make it into a continuous stream of these 5-minute clips until June 15th, again, 1 month after Kohberger was indicted. But it doesn't stop there. I did the math, and the math ain't mathin'. If you have 1,464 5-minute videos, and you take the time frame from 12:55 a.m. on November 13th to 5:32 or 5:22 p.m. on November 17th, and you math this all out, something doesn't add up. Because when you take 12:55 a.m. on 11/13 and you go to the 14th, that's 1, 15th, that's 2, 16th, that's 3, 17th, that's 4. And then you add the additional time from 12:55 to 5:22 p.m. Well, that gives you 96 hours for these 4 full days plus 16 hours and 27 minutes for the additional time. Multiply all that together, and that's 112 hours and 27 minutes total possible time. That's their total possible time. I mean, when you take the time from when they recorded it to when it stopped recording, during that time, there's 112 hours and 27 minutes, if it recorded every minute. However, if you take what they say, 464 5-minute clips, and you multiply 464 by 5 minutes, that gives you 7,320 minutes total. You divide that by 60, because there's 60 minutes in an hour, and that gives you 122 hours of video. So when it's all said and done, their 5-minute clips over that time period could have only been 112 hours and 27 minutes, but somehow they've managed to get 122 hours of video in that time frame. Something isn't right with 1112. Not done yet. There's one more. Okay, and this is the one that drives me up the wall and around the corner, because this happens on October 30th, 2023 by Lawrence Mowry, well into the Kohberger case. And it says additional video downloads, October 25th, 2023. And it talks about what happened on October 17th, 2023. He received an email from the Latah County Prosecutor's Office in reference to downloading additional video from the security camera seized from the residence located at 1112 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. Previously, video had been downloaded from the camera for the approximately time, wordsmiths, frame of 2:30 to 4:30 hours on November 13th, 2022. Wait a minute. Now, this is in October of 2023. I just showed you a report where it says on June 15th, they had downloaded 464 5-minute videos and stitched them together. But now, on October 17th, Mallory's saying the only video they downloaded consisted of a time frame of between 2:30 and 4:30 on November 13th. Where's the rest of the video y'all completed on June 15th there, guy? These videos were downloaded and contained audio. Through different methods using forensically acquired data from the camera's SD card, additional videos were downloaded. However, they did not include the audio. So that explains what Ann Taylor was saying in court. She said there's no audio on the video that I received. That was what was created on June 15th with all of the stitched together video. None of those had audio. The only one had audio was from 2:30 to 4:30. I was requested to download videos to include audio from the approximate time frames of 4:45 to 1200 hours on November 13th, 2022. That leads me to believe if they wanted the audio from 4:45 to 12 and they had it from 2:30 to 4:30, that leads me to believe that the actual video and audio between 4:30 and 4:45 does not exist. Now, that 15 critical minutes of video and audio is going to drive me insane in this case. I'll explain why in a minute if you hadn't already figured it out. Due to the fact that the camera light bulb connection was inadvertently broken previously, a repair to the device to allow it to be powered on was needed. Well, when did y'all break it? Because you already downloaded all that video on June 15th. In the email received on October 17th, the defense counsel, Ann Taylor, provided approval of the repair. Prior approval was provided by the Latah County Prosecutor's Office. So they needed both counsels, I guess, to approve this, this repair. I was able to request and receive the camera and wireless router from evidence. I was successful in replacing the light bulb threaded connection with a standard wall plug to power the device. The device powered up and I was able to download videos from 4:45, not 4:30, to 12:05. Upon reviewing the videos, they appeared to contain audio. The videos were saved to a forensic computer located in the secure Moscow Police Department. These videos were concatenated, stitched, using Axon Investigative, formerly called Input Ace version 3.2.0. These files were placed onto Blu-ray discs and placed into evidence. I returned the camera and router to evidence after resealing their respective containers because you're wanting to really keep a hold of the chain of custody. I resealed it in the respective containers, and this is me logging it. You didn't care about chain of custody in the beginning, though, Mallory. That's where the egregiousness takes place. So what did we learn from all of this? So it means Ann Taylor finally got the audio for at least these hours after October 17, 2023. We're missing audio and probably video from 4:30 to 4:45. Now, what does all of this information tell us? Allow me to explain. And this is the best way that I can explain it, is to take all of the events from all of those docs and log exactly what happened with the 1112 King Road camera footage. And it starts on November 13th, 2022. Officer Schneider gets the SD card from the 1112 camera. Same day, Officer Snyder returns the SD card to the resident. Same day, that resident reinserts their SD card into the camera and turns it on, allows it to keep recording, and then they go to Boise, Idaho. On November 15th, Olivia Gonzalez calls MPD and tells them, hey, I've seen a picture of a camera on the porch of 1112. Did y'all get it? Mowry then has Officer Rosinski contact the resident and learns that they're now in Boise, Idaho, and they're not coming back till November 28th. Same day, Mowry realizes that the footage is being written over by new footage as it's back in the camera and currently operating. But he didn't realize that until on the same day, the brother of the resident of 1112 contacts Mowry by email and tells him he's viewing the video footage and sees a suspect car on the video. And then Mowry contacts another resident the next day and has them view on their phone video from their phone and relay to Mowry what they see. The next day, Mowry views video on another resident that lived at that house that came back into town, had them pull it up on their phone, and they view from the resident's phone video of a vehicle. Next thing we know is June 15th, the individual 5-minute clips are finally fused together, but all with no sound. And somehow when they fused them together, they got more video footage than there was time to have video footage. Then on October 17th, audio was finally obtained on the video to provide to the defense counsel. Until this date, other than the audio they had from 2:30 to 4:30, the investigators had no audio of 1112 of other times. So anything else they were investigating other than 2:30 to 4:30, they didn't have any audio to even listen. So they weren't investigating too much, it doesn't seem. But here's where this comes into play. And this is why I say I don't know why we didn't see a motion to suppress the 1112 camera footage in the course of this case. Because when you look at chain of custody of the 1112 camera, it starts with Officer Snyder taking possession of it. Then they give it back to the resident. They reinsert it into their camera. The resident drives to Boise, remotely connects into it, then gives access to their brother to remotely connect into it. And then the brother emails Mowry, and as he emails him, he apparently still has remote access to it. Then Mowry has Rosinski retrieve the card, but even after that, he has yet another resident access to footage who apparently still had access to it. So how could this chain of custody hold up in a court of law? There should have been a motion to suppress filed. I think this is an excellent example, unfortunately, of ineffective assistance of counsel. And just to back that up, let's read the law as it relates to chain of custody of evidence. Now, I pulled this article from the National Institute of Justice, and it's Law 101, Legal Guide for the Forensic Expert, and it starts with chain of custody. The chain of custody should be maintained at all times by all laboratories with access to the evidence. The chain of custody is a recorded means of verifying where the evidence has traveled and who handled it before the trial. The reason for establishing a chain of custody is to prevent substitution of, tampering with, mistaking the identity of, damaging, altering, contaminating, misplacing, or falsifying the evidence. The principle and procedure creates legal integrity of the evidence. The chain of custody verifies both the legal integrity and the authenticity of all evidence. Without proof of an intact chain of custody, the evidence may be excluded from trial or afforded less weight by the trier of fact. All laboratories that have access to the evidence must maintain accurate accountability of the chain of custody. It is best for the laboratory to keep the evidence in safe, properly controlled storage facilities and to limit the number of people who come in contact with the evidence. Did that happen in this case? Throughout the collection, handling, testing, and storage procedures, Strict protocols must be followed to ensure that evidence remains verifiable in terms of authenticity and integrity. Each person that handles the evidence must be identified, and all periods of custody must be properly accounted for and recorded. Failure to establish identity, authenticity, legal integrity, and a complete chain of custody for any item of evidence that passes through the laboratory may result in exclusion of the evidence for a limiting instruction to the jury regarding how to weigh testimony. Well, I think the fact that you gave it back to the resident and at least 3 different people verifiably had access to it before you even collected it again, and then we don't know what happened to it except for some suspect things you did in your laboratory, I think that this evidence would have easily been excluded from the trial and more than likely suppressed. So there should have been a motion to suppress, or at the very least, a motion in limine to exclude this evidence. It never came up in the Kohberger case. Folks, this is either ineffective assistance of counsel or the defense team knowing this would be ineffective assistance of counsel. And this is absolutely an easy way for the second largest piece of evidence in the case to get this case retried due to ineffective assistance of counsel, in my humble opinion. Let me know yours in the comments below. So what are the key takeaways from this, you may ask? Key takeaways are: the chain of custody of the 1112 camera footage is laughable and should have been excluded or suppressed, or at least a healthy attempt to exclude it or suppress it should have been made. The camera only records in 5-minute intervals. We now know that for a fact. The footage contains footage of Linda Lane's dumpster guy digging into the dumpster in front of 1112 King at 3:20. We now have more questions about dumpster guy. And finally, there is no footage of the time frame of 4:30 to 4:45, during which we know that 3 vehicles either entered and exited, or at the very least exited the area. We know that because of the 1320 Linda Lane footage. So when I contemplated it was one or both of the roommates leaving out at 4:33 and we see them passing Linda Lane, well, we now know that 1112 is not going to ever be able to verify that. When we see the vehicle leaving at 4:37, we will never be able to verify it left from that area. When we see the vehicle leaving at 4:42, we'll never be able to verify the vehicle left from that area, even though we see all 3 of them on the 1320 Linda Lane footage, all heading away from the King Road residence during that time period, which is very frustrating. So I know a lot of people would like for me to dive into the statements of the roommates, and I haven't done that yet. And I haven't done that yet for a reason. And I get little trolls all in my comments. Do you still believe that Dylan and Bethany left or weren't there? Well, I wasn't even going to begin to dive into those until I explained the saga of the 1112 King Road camera. Now that we know that there isn't any video footage between 4:30 and 4:45 to be able to verify things, then I believe that does make a big difference as it relates to the roommates. The only thing I do not know is there footage at 4:19? That's the footage I would like to see of who came and went out of that neighborhood. Was it recording then? We may never know because of the 5-minute intervals, unless they release the 1112 King Road footage, which I think they really have to at this point. However, when looking at this case and you look at the things that we've discovered here just in the last few days that I presented, now I think we have a pretty sound case for ineffective assistance of counsel. At this point, I'm not even sure if it wasn't ineffective assistance of counsel or if the defense did it on purpose so that they could file for ineffective assistance of counsel. For at the very least, the 1112 camera footage, which was the second biggest piece of evidence in this case, should have had a motion to suppress or a motion in limine filed for it. It did not. I don't know why. But looking at chain of custody, that would have been an easy one. Give me your thoughts. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Post your comments, your criticisms. Until next time, Pavarotti's out.
To